Did Detective Gummert ever speak to Kamel's father? And Sidra stated that all communication with Detective Gummert went through her. In his police report dated January 22nd, 2015, Detective Gummert said that Sidra asked that he only contact her and not the father. Quote, she stated her father is under a lot of stress due to what is going on with her mother, and she felt that it best that she be the go-between us and her father. Okay, so here we have Sidra saying all communication went through her. And then we have Detective Gummert saying Sidra asked that all communication go through her, not directly to the father. And when I asked Detective Gummert in my 21 questions, did he ever speak with Mr. Alam? He said no. It was a two-letter answer. No, it was clear. It was very clear. However, days later, Detective Gummert then tells Dan Hennon that he spoke with Mr. Alam on several occasions. Several occasions. So at this point, I'm being told that Detective Gummert never spoke with Mr. Alam. Dan Hennon is being told that Detective Gummert did speak with Mr. Alam several times. The police report doesn't mention Detective Gummert ever speaking with Mr. Alam. It only mentions that Sidra was to be the go-between between police and the Alam family. So, I then reached out to Detective Gummert to find out what was the problem here. Was there something that got lost in translation maybe? Was my question not clear? Did he not understand it? But the more that I reread the question, it was hard for me to understand how somebody could misunderstand it. A mistake could have been made, and a mistake probably was made, is what it looks like. Here's where it gets a little interesting. So I was asking Detective Gummert a follow-up question, pretty much, just saying, hey, why did you tell me something different than what you told Dan Hennon? And he says, my apologies. I answered the question incorrectly. I have spoken with Kamel's father on several occasions. So I then asked him why he answered the question incorrectly. And he just responded, a mistake on my part, not trying to hide anything. Which is good. That's a good answer. Because a mistake was made. Another mistake. How many mistakes can we pile on top of other ones that were made in this case? And life is just a learning process. We all mess up. So this isn't a hit piece to show all the mistakes that Detective Gummert did. This is just to point out some of the reasons why this case should be reopened, re-examined, because there are still many questions. There are still a lot of things that don't make sense, a lot of stories that don't add up, a lot of people with differing stories, and we're just trying to figure out what is the actual truth here. When you have so many people giving you a different story, it's hard to figure out what the actual truth is. And when everybody thinks that their truth is truth. So, as far as this case goes, I don't know what the truth is because everybody has a different story. That's been one of the biggest problems here.
Come on, baby, dry your eyes, wipe your tears away. Never like to see you cry. Won't you please forgive me? I wouldn't ever try to hurt you. I just needed someone to hold me, to fill the void while you were gone, to fill this space of emptiness. I'm only human, of flesh and blood I'm made. Human, born to make mistakes. So many nights I longed to hold you. So many times I looked and saw your face. Nothing could change the way I feel. No one else could ever take your place. I'm only human, of flesh and blood I'm made. Human, born to make mistakes. I'm only human, of flesh and blood I'm made. Human, born to make mistakes.
Police say there are photos of the bullet hole in the living room on January 17th. Even though 1 month later they had to come back on February 18th of 2015 to find the bullet hole and to find the actual bullet, for whatever reason, there were photos taken of this bullet hole on January 17th, 2015, and they still missed it. Even by their own photos that the police took, they still could not find this bullet. They still could not find this bullet hole. Okay, well, police moved things around in the living room, yet they did not look up to see a bullet hole above their heads. Whew. I mean, that calls into question just about everything else that they did in this case, right? That should at least make us want to get a second look, a third look. That should raise some eyebrows in the Apple Valley Police Department and possibly in the Dakota County Sheriff's Department as well. Now, police were in the house 3 times within 34 days. January 17th, January 19th, and February 18th of 2015. Detective Gummert doesn't know the exact date of when he saw the bullet hole in the living room. I think it would be nice to get the actual photos of the bullet hole on January 17th. And the next information disclosure request that we put in will ask for those photos. We will also ask for photos of the murder weapon where it was found. We would, at the very least, we would like to have a photo of the murder weapon itself, which we don't have right now. The only images out there of the murder weapon on a table, not where it was found, but on a table, was given to Tom Lydon of Fox News 9. And so it's public, it's out there, not the best quality, but the photo's there. So police spell Chris Klein's last name differently in two different police reports. Klein, Klien, both by Detective Brian Bone. Detective Knight spells it Cline. So, just more mistakes, more little things that happen. Police are human, born to make mistakes. We all are. It happens. There was also the question of, did David swear at Kamel's father? Now, here we have a few differing accounts here where first we have Sidra told Detective Gummert, and this is a quotation from Detective Gummert's police report, David called her father and in the conversation was swearing at him and advised that they were no longer allowed to contact the family and that they were to leave the family alone. Sidra stated that she called David and attempted to discuss what was going on up in Minnesota, and David advised her not to contact the family moving forward. Sidra stated she attempted to contact Kamel several times after her conversation with David, but Kamel would not return her texts or calls, page 41. Now, in August of 2015, Dan Hennon spoke with the father, Anjem Alam, and Mr. Alam told Dan that he didn't remember David ever yelling at him or swearing at him. And Dan Hennon has been very public about that conversation. We do have the pact theory. There was a question early on. Was there a pact between David and Kamel to end their lives and take their daughter with them? And Sean Wright told me that there was a pact between the couple. At the same time, or around that same time, back in early 2015, Mason Hendricks on Facebook wrote that it was a joint decision between David and Kamel to end their lives and take their daughter with them. That's what he's basically saying, not the exact quote. We have the exact quote. But when I spoke with Hendricks later on, probably about a year later, he basically said that he does not believe that there was a pact. So there could be a lot of people who believed one thing when the case first happened, when the case was first opened, when the investigation was still ongoing, and then later on realized that, okay, maybe what I thought was true wasn't true. And that's kind of what I'm hoping will come from this too, is that a lot of people who were so adamant, who just thought that David Crowley was guilty, that I would just like for some of them to reconsider the possibility that maybe he's not. Or maybe what the police told us isn't exactly true. And I think a lot of people can agree that what the police told us, there's a lot to be questioned. There's a lot of holes that are missing, a lot of holes that weren't found, one in particular until 1 month later. But we know that on January 17th, police looked down into the basement, followed a bullet hole that was in the living room floor that led into the basement, that was lodged into one of the basement walls. So we know they looked down. And if their theory is true that there were photos taken on January 17th of the living room ceiling, then we know that they looked up. The only question is, why didn't they see the bullet hole in the living room? And I asked Mason Hendricks this, and he also wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, and said that because there was a Christmas tree there, that it blocked the view of where the bullet hole was. And he's not saying that that's exactly what happened, but that's his that was his view on it, was why they missed the hole, because that was a big question. How do you miss a hole? He even asked that, how do you miss a hole? But so at first I was like, okay, that makes sense, I guess. But when they move the Christmas tree, and you can tell the Christmas tree has been moved, at that point they should have seen the hole in the ceiling. So not nitpicking. I mean, this is a big deal. This isn't just like they just missed one little hole and it had nothing to do with the case. This is the hole that led to the actual bullet that they say David killed himself with. So they didn't have that for 1 month, but they were already working with the theory that David Crowley was guilty, and they were going about to prove that theory. They spent a whole year trying to prove that theory. And I don't know about you, but to me, it has never been proven, and Detective Gummert is right when he says that a lot of people will never believe their theory. And why should we believe their theory? How could we believe their theory based on the evidence that they've given us? And then at the same time are saying that we believe that, oh, the government killed him. I've never mentioned a government conspiracy as you know, what happened with David. I never said that David was killed by the government, or the government had anything to do with killing David Crowley. But at the same time, they make it really hard to discount that possibility. Now, one of the reasons why Mason Hendricks believed that the pack theory was true had to do with some of the comments that were made by some of the family members. Some of the family members had actually brought this theory forth, and maybe that was just so that they didn't have to deal with the fact that it was possible that David Crowley was guilty. The mistakes are all over the place. I've only documented a few of them here,